A cataclysm descended from the heavens. Above the atmosphere, debris shattered and meteors plummeted, tearing through the sky to strike the planet below. The earth burned, engulfed in a fiery apocalypse as a disaster unlike any other fell upon the world. Amidst the flames and the smoke, a terrifying visage emerged. A demonic face with 3 eyes, the central one glowing a sinister crimson, loomed over the destruction. It was a calamity far harder to endure than anything humanity had ever faced in its history. A massive, unblinking eye widened, staring down with cold indifference at the devastation it had wrought. Humanity plummeted into its greatest chaos yet. The world was overrun by overwhelming existences. Monstrous centipedes, armored giants, and arachnoid horrors swarmed the land, their sheer numbers turning the horizon into a nightmare of claws and steel. A chillingly simple demand arrived from an unknown civilization: surrender humanity's people or face extinction. The United Nations refused, and inside the Assembly Hall, tension hung heavy as world leaders confronted the impossible choice. A representative of the United States stood firm at the podium, his face slick with sweat, but his voice booming with resolve. He declared that the monsters were merely trying to use humans as livestock, and that they could never accept such demands. Humanity gave a name to these unknown existences that had appeared so suddenly: calamities. Enormous monstrosities rose from the sea and earth, towering over the cities like ancient gods of destruction. Desperation drove humanity to its last resort. They unleashed nuclear weapons against the overflowing tide of calamities, turning the skies into atomic fire. Yet it was futile. The calamities treated the nuclear blasts as if they were mere bonfires. A colossal octopus-like entity rampaged through the inferno, destroying the city as it danced through the flames, completely unharmed. In the ruins of a shattered city, a father clutched his child, cowering in the shadow of a gargantuan beast. The monster's single red eye bore down on them, marking the end of their world. With every sliver of hope extinguished, the world waited for its end. Then, against the burning sky, a lone silhouette emerged, gripping a massive, jagged blade that caught the firelight like a final promise of defiance. The monster lunged, its tentacles descending to crush the helpless civilians. The father squeezed his eyes shut, bracing for the inevitable impact. A sudden rush of air and power startled the man. He looked up, his eyes wide with shock. A blinding pillar of light tore through the darkness. They had appeared. A warrior surged forward with lightning speed, his blade carving through the air. These were the saviors of humanity, the 13 Zodiacs. Humanity had named the 12 humans blessed by divine God saints. They stood in a circle, robed and powerful, surrounding the symbol of the constellations. However, among them was a 13th human who had awakened without the blessing of a divine God. Energy crackled around him, wild and untamed. That man was Li Jian. The past resurfaced at the Demon Tower, where the decisive battle unfolded. Li Jian faced its massive gates, intent on killing the key of the calamities, the Crimson Eyes. A man with thick facial hair and a scarred face, the Leo Saint, wept openly, tears streaming down his cheeks as he let out a pained groan of grief. Li Jian's internal monologue cut through the performance. He stared at the crying man, his expression twisting into a manic, knowing grin. He knew this was nothing but a pathetic show. Li Jian clarified the truth of that day. Though he had bet his life on the battle, he hadn't sacrificed himself willingly. The reality was a brutal struggle against the Crimson Eyes, a titan of muscle and bone. Li Jian knelt on the ground, exhausted, his blade planted in the earth. They had barely managed to defeat the Crimson Eyes, the corpse of the beast lying massive and still before him. He realized the bitter truth. The others had run off and left him there. Breathless and battered, he cursed the bastards who had abandoned him after he had done the heavy lifting. Suddenly, a blade pierced him from behind. Blood sprayed into the air as the cold steel of betrayal drove through his chest. Shock washed over Li Jian's face. He gasped, unable to comprehend the sudden strike. He was shoved into the abyss. As he fell into the darkness, helpless and bleeding, he cursed them one last time. One of the allies he thought had fled had circled back, stabbed a dagger into his back, and trapped him in the worst place imaginable, a hell from which he could never escape. And as if to ensure he wouldn't get lonely, he was discarded into the nest of monsters. Above him, a gigantic eye peered down through the hole, sealing his fate. Li Jian lay broken at the bottom, sarcastically noting that he had been put together with all these large friends. Blood ran down his face, masking a delirious smile. He laughed weakly at the absurdity of it all. His body was destroyed. His left arm was severed, and his right arm hung uselessly at his side. As blue energy leaked from his wounds, he thought that perhaps it would be better to just die there. A monster's jaw opened near him, ready to feast. But something snapped inside Li Jian. His eyes focused, sharp and deadly. He refused to let it end like this. "Don't make me laugh," he snarled. Defying all logic, he stood. With his arms useless, he gripped his dagger between his teeth. Blue aura flared violently around him, illuminating the darkness. He challenged the universe itself, refusing to go down without a fight. The maw of the abyss opened wide, thousands of teeth spiraling in the dark. Li Jian stared into the void with unshakable resolve. There was no way he would die like this. He launched himself into the swarm of monsters, a lone spark of light against an ocean of shadows. He swore he wouldn't die until he had killed every single one of the bastards who had stabbed him in the back. With a final, explosive burst of speed and power, he drove forward, his rage burning brighter than the sun. "Just you wait," he screamed into the void, promising a reckoning that would one day shake the world.